So how do we measure insulin resistance? An oral glucose tolerance test with insulin, known as a dynamic measurement of insulin resistance, is the gold standard for this. So what we look for when we measure for insulin resistance at Taylormade Performance is measuring these Kraft patterns. And we look at whether the peak is beyond the 30-minute mark, which would be telling in terms of insulin resistance. And as we can see with these patterns, pattern 1, which is a blue line pattern, is the normal pattern. And then we have pattern 2, 3, and 4. And of interest, the fasting measures in pattern 2 and 3 are normal fasting measures. So that's where the dynamic measurement for a Kraft test or this oral glucose tolerance test is important. So we look for peaks beyond the half-hour mark, and also we look at how long the measures take to return to baseline. So in this example, we see that with the insulin, we have a delayed response right at the top right-hand corner. So this green line, and then we see that there's a peak delayed at the 2-hour mark, which shows a delayed response of insulin, so dysfunctional metabolism. In this example, we see the peak of insulin above the threshold, so above this 35 units, and we see it delayed by the hour mark. This is of particular interest, as this was a retired international rugby player, only 18 months retired, and we see signs of insulin resistance in this individual. In this example, we can see that insulin is high, but when we do a retest 6 months later, we can see the improvement just by making some changes to the diet, by removing bread and also reducing beer consumption, and how that can improve the response of insulin in that short period of time. And in this example, we see a type 2 diabetic who has out of control glucose via the yellow dotted line, and we see a low response of insulin in the initial measure. In the follow-up assessment, we see that after giving the pancreas some recovery time in terms of intermittent fasting or having longer time between meals, and also reducing the carbohydrate content of those meals further, we then see a return of insulin function. So we get a reduction in glucose response, but then we get the response of insulin and the improvement of that pancreatic function. And then a further follow-up of this individual is that we get further progress in terms of lowering glucose, but now we get a much more appropriate insulin response and lower insulin response in order to deal with that glucose. So further progress made by this individual. So this short amount of examples just highlights the impact of insulin resistance and knowing about the issue, and then what you can do about it and measuring that progress as you understand your own individual response.